Welcome to Stardust Stereo. I'm Parker McPhinney. I'm your host. Today is the 24th of March, year 2025. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about the solar eclipse, partial solar eclipse, that occurs on Saturday, the 29th of March. And this eclipse is at 9 degrees Aries. This is an extremely forceful and pioneering eclipse. It is about finding your confidence, your courage, not letting fear determine your actions in your life. In this particular eclipse, there's some beautiful aspects happening which can shore up your compassion, your visionary, maverick energy. Because this eclipse occurs in Aries, which is headstrong, forceful, hot-headed, determined, fearless, we'll see a lot of those characteristics. But the ruling planet Mars, and at the time of this eclipse, on the 29th, Mars will be in an exact, almost partial, square to Chiron. Chiron is the maverick thinking planet of the universe, where that magical key that turns a new door that nobody even knew was there opens us up into a whole new level of being. But in order for that to happen, you have to let go of the fear. The fear blocks you. Mars in Cancer is not always necessarily forceful, straightforward, like, normally Mars is in other signs, and certainly in its own sign, Aries. You know where they're coming from. When you talk to a man or a woman who has Mars in Aries, you are not at doubt about how they feel about anything. Why I also see this as a magnificent chart, really, because it has so much promise. There's been a lot of, fear-mongering out there, especially in the realm of our divided political environment in North America, in the USA. We really need to harness our energy to work together to make our country a better country. And this Mars in Cancer can soften the temperament a little bit amongst people to try to find the nurturing element and working your way to the front of the line. You don't have to elbow everybody, and you don't have to scream over everybody either. But there will still continue to be that. I feel like this particular solar eclipse has been ushered into us at this time, and especially in North America and the United States, to help us come to terms with our anger. We're a country that does not know how to express our anger except through mostly violence. And that is so self-destructive. And why I see this as a beautiful chart is because the Mars placement that rules the sun and the moon in the solar eclipse chart is making 3 harmonious configurations with Saturn, which rules structure, Uranus, which rules breakthroughs, and Neptune, which rules compassion. They rule a whole lot of other issues. But I do see America headed into new territory, and I do not necessarily see it as a negative thing. In this particular chart, we have Mercury, which rules communication, at 0 degrees Aries, and it's retrograde, as is Venus. Venus has moved back into Pisces and is conjunct Neptune. What that means is through the spoken word, trying a new tactic, you can come to the middle way. This is possible, but it's only possible if you expand your thinking capacity to embrace some particular point of view that is not necessarily fully aligned with yours. And that's called maturity. The hot-headedness of this particular solar eclipse can sometimes be a good thing. There are times when forcefulness and courage and confidence have to be seen by others in order for them to behave accordingly. Any parent can tell you this. If you say to your child, "Oh, I don't know, maybe you can throw your toys across the room, it's okay," instead of being firm and explaining to them that that's not what we do in the world, and throwing your toy across the room and hitting somebody else in the head is going to have repercussions. Tantrums usually don't go well. What does go well is solid confidence and the ability to speak in a manner in which you will be heard but not feared, because people who fear you will not respect you. So keep that in mind when you're wielding your perspective, trying to coax people to your perspective. The more strategic you can be with your mode of operation, the more successful you will be. An Aries eclipse always governs the part of the physical body dealing with the head, the eyes, the ears. This particular eclipse is really important that you stay balanced and calm, especially if you deal with health issues, mental issues such as bipolar or ADHD. They get really wonked out with the energy surge that happens during an eclipse. There can be a rush, that people feel when this eclipse is getting near to being either activated by another slower moving planet, or during the period in which it is most forceful, which is now, even though it hasn't occurred yet, up to 2 weeks afterwards. And then I want you to write these dates down. This particular eclipse's potential will be seen in August of 2025, December of 2025, and then again in August of 2026. Those are the times when the potential of this eclipse, the seeds that you plant right now, will be looked at to see if they have resulted in sprouting, growing, being harvested. We will not see this eclipse on the west coast of North America in the United States. You will be able to see it if the clouds have not blocked it on the East Coast. It will be starting at 6:13 a.m. and going until 7:17 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Countries where they will have a great show of it are going to be Iceland, Norway, Russia, Canada, Greenland, St. Pierre, France. And again, it's a partial solar eclipse. Great discoveries can be had through science, medicine, athleticism, new records made. It is a war eclipse, but because Mars is in Cancer and squaring it widely, it is a war on wars. In other words, this particular eclipse will point out the cost of war, not just the financial, but the cost, the toll on humanity. So perhaps the global world has gotten slightly tired of killing each other. I'm not going to put a bet on that, but if we could begin to discuss ways to solve our problems without arms, it would be an evolutionary thing. This eclipse is also tied to the youth because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It represents how our youth is going to be standing up and being heard, especially in the next 2 years. In the USA chart, I use the July 4th, 1776, 12:15 p.m. Philadelphia. Gives us a 13 degrees Libra rising. This eclipse and 4 planets and the nodes will all fall in the 6th house of the civil servant. It rules our public health, labor, judicial systems, and the functioning of the courts. Having so many planets in the 6th house of America's chart indicate a vast overhaul of events that are tied to our everyday life, from sanitation workers to butchers, to the people that process our food and put it on our table. That 6th house also deals with our animals' health. You meat eaters out there need to be especially careful that you know where your meat source is coming from. The 6th house also deals with the functioning of like the post office, how you get your mail. And of course, Mercury is retrograde and Venus is retrograde. It's already back in to Pisces when this eclipse occurs. But that indicates to me as well that there could be labor issues within those organizations that are going to be popping up. One thing I think is really important to deal with every eclipse is to remember that this eclipse is the sun has sunglasses on. Eclipsed. It's eclipsed. So therefore, not everything is seen just yet. Not everything is known, how it's going to unravel, be unwrapped, how it's going to be presented. It's a work in progress. The issues of the 6th house in America. We are going through tremendous change. A lot of people are very unhappy about it. And then, by the same token, a lot of people are very happy about it. So how do we find that way that allows us to be using our critical thinking brains of how we navigate a teenager? Because America's a little bit like a teenager country, and we're learning as we go, and we're trying some new things, and they may fail and they may work. They may actually work, some of the changes that are being made in our country right now. Not everything's going to fail. And if you want everything to fail because you don't like our leader, you need to rethink that, because not every single idea that comes out of a person's mouth is great or horrible. I believe that we can, if we make the effort, really expand with this eclipse, because Jupiter is in Gemini and it will begin to touch America's, the USA's Mars. And that will show a thriving. So right now we're in the holding pattern, waiting to see how decisions will go forth. But I see by this summer, we could have some astounding, great news. And especially when Mars gets to Leo, which will be happening fairly soon. Mars moves into Leo on April 19th, and then it will begin to move toward activating in a trine this Aries eclipse in a very positive way. So there is some hope. There's some tremendous energy that can be actualized in a good way, especially during the first 10 days of May. So whatever you are planning right now in your personal life, what seeds you are planting, where you wish to progress, give yourself about a month and a half for those seeds to actually take root. Have confidence. Believe in yourself. Watch the news less. Love people more. Reconnect with people that you haven't seen in a while. Be compassionate with those that you don't necessarily understand. You know, I recently had a friend that crossed suddenly. And whenever somebody you know that you love leaves the body without warning, it reminds you how very short a period of time we are here. And actually, the conversation you have with somebody may be the last one. And for me personally, this cuts away all the pettiness in the world. It gets down to that core thing of, am I progressing on the path that I need to? Am I being loving? Am I being compassionate? Am I utilizing my potential? These are all things that this eclipse asks of you. Use the energy to work out. When you find yourself angry, take a cold shower. Jump in a pool if you live in the neighborhood of a pool. Or, you know what I'm saying? Cool down, cool off. Use this eclipse to be strong, be confident, be compassionate, and when you get hot-headed, cool off. Learn how to be dynamite in the best ways. I'd like to thank you for listening. I'm Parker McPhinney. This is Stardust Stereo. I'd like to thank my patrons. You know who you are. If you'd like to become a patron, you can do so at patreon.com/ParkerMcP. And I want to remind you, you are made of stardust. So go shine.